Good morning. Today is December 15th, 2016. My name is Judith Jenkins, a volunteer with the Hanford branch of the Kings County Library Volunteer History Project. Would you please state your full name?
Edward Ellis Bishop.
Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We'd like to ask you a few questions about your military experience and background that you could share with us. And I'd like to start out first with, where are you from?
I was born in San Francisco in 1943, May, in the middle of the World War II. My dad was in the Navy, went to the Philippines, and on his way he stopped in Hawaii, and eventually, when I was 5 and he was out of the service, we moved to Hawaii, Oahu.
Are your parents still with us today?
No, they both died.
Oh, I see, okay. What did they do for a living?
Well, my dad was in the service, like
Right.
I said, in the war. Then after that, he was personnel manager at Thrifty Drugs. That was his last job.
Okay.
He worked at Dole Pineapple in Hawaii when we lived there. They called it Hawaiian Pineapple Company, I think, at the time. There was a big pineapple up on the roof.
Right. And what about your mother?
She was a homemaker.
She's a homemaker?
Yeah, because I have 3 other siblings.
What
I'm
do
the
you-
oldest.
Okay.
And then my sister was born in December 7, 44. And then the brother was born in 46. And then my youngest brother was born in 53 when we were still in Hawaii.
Did any one of your siblings serve in the military?
No, just me.
Okay. What did you do before serving in the military?
Well, I was a young feller. I went to high school, got a, high school diploma. Went to junior college for a couple of years. Went back to Hawaii with a friend of mine for summer school, just an excuse to stay in the dorms and go surfing. Then I went to UCSB and flunked out from surfing and being in a fraternity. So I had to decide what I was going to do because at the time it was Vietnam and I had a student deferment, and if you're no longer a student, you better figure out something fast. So
Right, I hear you.
I figured out I have to back up.
Sure.
When I was in high school, I had a friend that lived up the street, and his dad was in the Marines, and he asked his son to go to this thing called Devil Pups. So he needed somebody to go with him. So I went with him, and I was about 17 and a half at the time. So we went down to Camp Pendleton in California. And it was sort of like pretend basic training. They shaved off all our hair and made us clean toilets and all that, and watch crazy people stand up on roofs and say, "This is my rifle, this is my gun. One is for killing and one is for fun." And I decided at the time that the Marines was not for me, nor was the Army. So
How long was the program, that
I
particular
think it was a week or 10 days. I can't remember. It's been so long. Let's see, where was I going? Yeah. So I took the test. I went to the recruiter, Air Force recruiter. Took the test and did real well on that. I think it was I can't remember the exact, areas, but one of them was mechanical, and I did a lot better than I thought I would. Another was, I think, language ability, something like that. So I joined.
What year was that?
March of '65.
Okay.
It was a way different world than it is now. Everything was analog, of course, you know, no computers, nothing was digital that we knew of. Part of the reason I went in was my dad had served.
Okay.
And I wanted to, I think it was a cultural thing too, that, you know, if your father served, you served, that kind of attitude.
Did he also serve in the Air Force?
No, he was in the Navy. Yeah.
Well, how was your, everybody joins the military, goes through some sort of boot camp experience. How was yours?
Well, it was quite interesting. First of all, they try to break you down. And what they want is 17-and-a-half-year-olds and 18-year-olds because they can mold them better. I was 3 years older, you know, and I'd seen the world and been to college. I mean, not seen the world, I'd been to Hawaii, you know, basically. And was now living in California again. So I wasn't that easy to convince that everything was wonderful. So, you know, they try to break you down. They say there's nothing in the world lower than whale shit except for you. And that was one of my drill instructor's favorite phrases. And you 4 Eyes in the 3rd platoon, you know, shape up or something. That was me. Go pick up cigarette butts, you know, and if you don't do it right, you have to do it again. So I learned real quick, do it the best possible way, right away, you know, and then if some jerk above you thinks you have to do it, you know, just to harass you, you know, you might find 2 or 3 cigarette butts and pretend that you're, you know, doing it all over again correctly. But one of the weird things that happened was all my fraternity brothers from UCSB, University of California, Santa Barbara, started sending me letters in basic training. So I'm sitting there not expecting anything, and then the guy is calling off my name. There were about 50 letters over a period of like 3 days. It was like embarrassing as the dickens, you know.
Wow.
And some of them were crazy ones from girls that I didn't even know, saying that she was pregnant, so on, which was totally false, you know. And I'm reading these letters going, what in the world is going on? Finally figured it out, you know, but it didn't make me very happy with the drill instructor. And in my flight, that's what they called it. We were all in one big barracks, you know, one giant bay, double beds, both sides of the room, a foot locker behind, which had to be in a certain order, of course. Everybody's had to be standard. Let's see. Oh yeah, part of my flight was like hillbillies and people from Bedford-Stuyvesant, which I found out later was like a housing project in New York. And these guys, compared to us, had a hard life, you know, compared to me that grew up in the suburbs and that kind of stuff, you know. So it was an interesting mix. One of the craziest things that happened when I was in basic, the guy, I slept on the bottom bunk, the guy above me had an epileptic fit, flopped off the top bunk, fell down on the floor, and, you know, I knew what was happening just from, I don't know, general knowledge or something. And of course, where are you going to find a spoon to hold the guy's tongue down in the middle of the barracks where everything is standardized? You know, so I thought, okay, what are we going to do? So basically, we just held him down. And then he got kicked out. And he was a crazy dude. He knew he was epileptic. He stopped taking the pills because he wanted to be in the service. He wanted to help. So he'd already been thrown out of the Army because of this. So he said he was going to try to get into the Marines or somebody and hide his pills. You know, the guy was nuts. So anyway, I used to march behind this guy. So after he left, I'm looking at somebody else's, you know, shaved head, basically marching around.
Well, let's talk about your military life and how you adjusted to it after your training and getting yourself affiliated with the process.
Yeah.
How was that for you? Was that a positive experience?
Yeah, it was. They gave me a Chinese test when I was in basic to see if I could learn the language easily, and there was a whole bunch of us, and it's a tonal language, so it's really bizarre to somebody who's not musical or doesn't understand the tones, you know. So I ended up going to language school. A lot of people went to Monterey. There was a big, I forget what it was called, Defense Languages Institute, I think, in Monterey, California. Well, they taught a lot of Russian, but I went to Syracuse University. Actually, we lived outside of town, and they sent the instructors up from the university. So we studied Czech under Czechoslovakian. There was probably 8 of us, I think. Studied Czechoslovakian with this old general that had escaped from Nazi Germany. His aide had taken him out on a train, hid him under the seat with his wife, and got out. So that there was a nice old guy. He was ancient at the time, probably my age, you know, 73. His aide lived on cigarettes and coffee. I swear to God, I never saw the man do anything but smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. Anyway, so I was there for the blizzard of '66. I got a toboggan somehow, and all us California guys, the snow had built up on the side of the barracks, so it was level with the roof. So we would go up the roof and jump off into the snow, all us California guys, you know, thinking, this is grand, I've never seen this. So anyway, we got out of Syracuse, and I went to San Angelo. Meanwhile, they're doing background investigation, which I didn't know at the time, because I got a top secret clearance. I went home on leave.
What did you do on leave?
Basically hang around with my family.
Okay.
You know, they were living in Granada Hills at the time.
Did you have any time for your friends too, who were still there?
Most of them, you know, had gone. After leaving for college, I kind of had nothing to do with high school, partly because I thought half of them be in Vietnam, you know, getting killed. Yeah. And I didn't want to know, especially, so I've never actually gone back to my high school for reunions. Part of the reason is I was like a late bloomer. High school to me was a stepping stone because I knew I wanted to go to college. And I probably went to see my friends up at Santa Barbara, fraternity brothers. Anyway, then I had to go back to Texas again, to San Angelo. There was a base there, and supposedly we were learning how to do the equipment that we might use, you know, basically radios. So we were into this antiquated equipment, probably from World War II.
Was that part of your specialized training?
Yeah. Well, and again, they were doing background investigation, so it was, for us, we didn't know it, you know, we were basically killing time. So we got done with that, and then they put us on KP a day and a day off, on KP a day off, and, you know, when we were off, we'd say, meet you in the third row at the theater. You know, whatever was on, we'd go watch.
So how long did that take?
A few months.
Background check?
One of the interesting things when I was there was there were all kinds of pilots being trained by our Air Force, guys from Iran and all these other Mideast countries. anyway, they were training them to be pilots. So you saw all these guys walking around, different uniforms and stuff like that. But one of the most exciting times, we were doing KP. And one of the guys, this quiet little guy that was from Bath, New York, picked up a dish and said, "I'm so tired of this, I could break this dish." And I forget, one of us grabbed the dish and just threw it on the floor and broke it, you know. And his eyes got really wide, and he said, "What's the matter with you crazy guys?" And we cleaned it up and kept on going.
Nobody got in trouble then, right?
No.
Okay.
There was nobody around. Basically, we were doing our thing. But one day there was a hailstorm, and we looked out the window, the door of the kitchen, and all these hail about the size of golf balls were falling on all the officers' cars, because they were the only ones that could afford a car. And we were just laughing like dickens, you know, because, you know, ha ha. So finally, after all that, went home on leave again. And meanwhile, all this Czech that I'd been learning is, you know, filtering out of my mind. And the Czech that I did learn was like everyday Czech. It was like, how, you know, restaurant and, you know, talking to people.
Right.
Okay. So then I go to Germany, finally. And I'm stationed right where East Germany, Czechoslovakia, and West Germany all used to come together. And we were really close to the border, for like 5 kilometers to East Germany, and about maybe 7 or so to Czechoslovakia. So we were really close. The base I was at, we called it Disneyland. Disneyland West, because it looked so bizarre in the German landscape. You know, there are all these huge antenna field and this giant field around it, you know. Yeah. So basically, I listened to the Czechs. Our Czech group wasn't that big. There were four different flights. We were all in one barracks, which was old World War II German barracks. And we worked swings, which was 4:30 in the afternoon till, no wait. Yeah. Swings, okay. Was 4:30 in the afternoon, 11:30 at night. Mids was 11:30 at night till 7:30 in the morning. And then 7:30 in the morning till 4:30 was days. So we would run through this rotation, which no way you could do it unless you're young like that, you know. And then we'd have, I think it was 4 days off. So some of that, we traveled around as much as we could. Belgium was one of our big places we went, which was quite interesting. Ran into some English guys, English soldiers, and teased them, you know, about being limeys, and they called us bloody colonials and so forth. And we walked around and basically drank together and so on. Anyway, Germany, there were still signs. This was, by the time I got there, it was, I think, late 66, 67. There were still road signs. You could see tank symbol with the kilometers per hour, because it was still partly split. Germany was still partly sectored. And of course, we were in the American sector. But my job was, at first, you listen to the Czech pilots and you write down what they're doing. And a lot of times it was just extremely boring. And other times, the whole entire Warsaw Pact would do exercises. So East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, all these things were going on at the same time. And it was extremely busy. We were just going crazy trying to
Did that produce unusual stress within you or the group that you were with?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Of course, we couldn't talk about what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
All the information went to NSA and the Pentagon and so on.
Mm.
One thing we did with all the paper that we wrote stuff down on had to go to a burn room. We burned all of that. We used big reel-to-reel tape recorders. And the equipment, compared to the stuff we had back in San Angelo, was like state-of-the-art. Had a big screen, a big oscilloscope, probably about this wide, about this tall, and you could expand it. You'd see the blips from the radio, so you could expand it. You could get it so it'd be, you know, really close, and you could get into the very middle by tuning it. There was like a carrier wave that's in the middle. You know, when you tune a radio,
Mm-hmm.
you got to get in that exact spot. Yeah, well, these were extremely delicate, so you could really get it nice. So anyway, we taped all that stuff, wrote it down, and so on. And at first, that's what I did. But I didn't hear as good as some of the other guys. So they moved me up to an analyst. So I was the guy that analyzed the activity and so on. And from there it was sent, you know, up the line to the guys that transmitted it basically to NSA. So it was interesting work, but I think I started grinding my teeth at night, not unknowingly. So now I have nice straight teeth from grinding my teeth, like you say, the stress.
The stress, right. How would you say that these experiences pretty much impacted your life, like for today?
Well, one thing, you know, that you don't think about, but everybody talks about later, is the camaraderie. I made some friends that, you know, I'm still friends with some who passed on. And then there, you know, I had some fraternity brothers that were really close too. But being in a situation like this, you know, where you're together all the time, you know, you're working together, you go out and play together, basically, and drink together, and it builds a different kind of camaraderie. I just read 2 books lately. Actually, one was called War by Sebastian Junger. And the other one was called Tribes, and he explains that in these books about how people need to belong, and the groups are different. It doesn't have to be black, white, you know, but there's a special bond.
I agree.
You know,
I agree.
in the Air Force,
I agree.
in all of the services, I think.
I agree.
That's different than, you know, like some people's tribes are football, you know, and so on. Anyway, sometimes a general would come, and no matter what we were doing, we had to stop and buff the stupid floors, you know. And it was crazy. So I'm going to be rude and use a word. It was fuck the mission, buff the position.
Okay. So how do you keep in contact then with your military friends?
Email, basically.
Email, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I saw one of them just recently. He's a wanderer. He's always been a wanderer. He's a great guy. When he came, I was already in Germany. He came probably about a month after I did, and he brought Jefferson Airplane, the Doors, and all these other things. You know, all that you heard was Beatles and Motown, and so it was like mind-boggling. So anyway, he showed up at the Hanford Police Station looking for me, because, you know, I told him to stop by because he was in Glendale going north. So he came by, and anyway, we met up after like 35 years. It was really interesting. And he only stayed for like 45 minutes, but it was like, you know, you look different, but you're the same person inside
Mhm.
that you were even back then, no matter what you've learned in between, you know, there's still that bond and that friendship. Anyway, one of the bad things that happened was I climbed over a gate. I had a ring on both middle fingers. I climbed on the gate, caught the ring on the gate. Not unknowingly, you know, because I went up the gate, stepped on the crossbar, jumped over it, and it cut it all the way around, 7/8 of the way around, all the way down to the bone, which I didn't realize at the time.
Oh, no.
So I go to the base. It's Friday night, of course, and nobody's there. The doctor tells the kid the medic to put it together with butterfly bandages, which of course is ludicrous because anyway. Finally, they sent me down to Nuremberg. I had avascular gangrene. Yeah, and gangrene is supposed, from what I knew, was supposed to jump, you know, so I could go here or here, and then up to the heart and kill me. So anyway, luckily that didn't happen. So they chopped it off, and I got out of there. And then I had. Shortly after that, I got an infection in my left testicle, and it swelled up really big. Ended up having an operation on that to remove there's like a bag around the testicle. So even though I wasn't in actual, you know, I was actually off duty for the finger, but I was in the Air Force. So when I got out, they said, "Is there anybody want to put in for the VA?" And I said, "Me." Because after it happened, I actually went to the Judge Advocate General, talked to him about it, and they said basically you can't do anything to the doctor. You can't sue the doctor or anything like that. You're going to live with it, kid. But one of the things I learned was humor. So here's my spider.
Okay. So how have these experiences impacted your outlook on military service and war today? Brief summary.
I'm glad I went in.
Okay.
I don't think it's for everybody. I do feel that people should do something for the country, you know, some sort of service. My middle brother went into the Peace Corps. That was how he spent his time, you know. Vietnam was crazy. It was, you know, it was the old domino theory at the time, which was things could, if one country became communist, everything around it would go communist. So I think that was a total mistake in judgment, and it was just a prevailing theory. So, and now I don't know about the Middle East. I know it's about more than what they say it is.
Well, future generations are going to see this interview, and so what would you like them to know? Right quick.
I do believe, you know, that you need to serve your country somehow, whether it be Peace Corps or the service. There are benefits. There are, of course, other things like you could die. It's a different world now, you know. It is so different than when I went in and when I grew up. And I don't know what to say to kids now. I think they should do something instead of sit there looking at screens all day.
I agree. Well, is there anything else that you would like to say?
I do go to the VA now, up
Okay.
in Fresno.
Okay.
I get a lot of benefits from that. I used the GI Bill to go back
Okay.
to college.
Okay.
I finished up, became a teacher, did that for 31 years. And some of the lessons I learned there, I tried to impart on my little third graders,
Okay. Okay. Okay, Ed. Well, we thank you so much for taking this time for the interview. And above all, we thank you for your service to this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
Did I go way over?
No,
No, you did perfect.
Right,
Wonderful.
yeah.
I
Very
can keep
good.
going.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for working with me.
sure.
I'm gonna go get, Sherman, you guys can chat.
All right. Okay.
Now, you said you were in the service? What?
I was a Navy reservist.
Okay.
A yeoman. So I push paper around. I just did 20 years.
Yeah.
I served in Maryland. And my POC was Andrews Air Force Base.
Okay.
Okay, so I was what you call a swing yeoman, meaning that my captain had me come in when the active duty people over at the Pentagon in the J2 section, when they went on leave
Mhm.
for holidays, he would call me in to cover.
Mm.
So I didn't go on ships, but I was his personal yeoman.
Yeah.
So wherever they needed last minute coverage on certain things,
Uh-huh.
I went to Crystal City in Virginia. I would go wherever he sent me, and he'd always work me really hard, but he was always very good to me. So I had a very good experience, and if history were to repeat itself, I think I would do the same thing again.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I would.
It's
I think everything you do in your life impacts who you are now. And if you did something different,
Yes.
you wouldn't be the same person,
right. Right. And I agree with you insofar as your statement on feeling enriched with your military friends, comrades, whatever.
Yeah.
Because I have one or two that I don't care where she is in the world, I might could pick up the phone and I could talk with her.
Yeah.
So it's a type of thing that I think every young person actually should feel because it gives you an appreciation, okay,
Yeah.
for what you all been through together, or respect.
Yeah.
This is a whole different thing.
Yeah, it goes so much more beyond respect
Yes, it does.
and camaraderie.
Yes.
It's what they tried to get me to believe in the Marines,
Mhm.
one for all and all. You take care of each other and so on. But I thought, I don't want to go die in the jungle.
Right.
I'd rather live and put in my time some other way. And it was interesting. I was there when the Russians came in
Mhm.
after Prague Spring, and I missed it by like 2 hours.
Wow.
I was working swings. I got off at 11:30. The Russians came in at 12 o'clock.
Mhm.
And because of the Warsaw Pact exercises, they knew where to go.
Mhm.
Some of the Czech the control tower guys were saying, "Fuck you, go home."
Mhm. Mhm.
But they knew how to get there. They knew where the base was. They probably landed on the stupid thing a million times.
Mhm.
They came in and they squashed
Mhm.
my mission.
Mhm.
And this was 68, right? And I got out in March of 69, so I went to, and at the same time I was getting married to a German girl.
Mhm. This is after what, your second tour?
No, I was only in 4 years.
Oh, 4 years, okay.
Yeah. So I went to work in driver's training
Mhm.
and the post office for the Christmas rush, and then got out. And then I was in the inactive reserve for 2 years.
Mhm.
And when that was over, it was like, okay, I can breathe again, kind of, because Vietnam was still going,
Mhm. Right.
you know.
Right.
there was always that, you know, that little background thing that said they could call me up for whatever.
That's true, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, you sound like you had a really interesting military life, and, you know, I'm sorry about
Hey.
your hand, but you know something? I'm glad that you're alive, you were able to share that with us.
Yeah, thank you.